How's your Tesla running?
Fine.
Could it be
I,
running better?
uh, well, maybe. I got something interesting in the mail this past week, which we'll get to in a little bit.
And it ties into a news item from this week, as a matter of fact, from this last week that I don't know if it's unexpected or
Yeah.
if we all kind of knew this, but there was one person in the world who was saying that this was not the case, and everybody, literally everybody else in the world knew that this was going to happen, except one person. And sadly, that one person is the person that everybody seems to the a lot of people seem to want to believe, even though nothing indicated that he was telling the truth. I'm Phil Royle. I am one of the hosts here at the What Car podcast, and I am also wearing a new hoodie that I talked about a week ago.
Yes.
So if
That
you
was
go
quick.
to, yeah, no, I don't mess around when I'm cold. If you go to the youtube.com/ at the what car, you'll see it. And Ed's sporting a new hat that I'm sure he'll tell you about. You can buy these at the whatcar.com/store. That helps support this blog and podcast where you get my smiling face and voice, I guess, if I can smile and voice. You're supposed to. That's what you're supposed to do in call centers. You look in the mirror and you're always smiling, so everybody hears the smile, even though you're dying inside. I
Uh,
have other credentials about why I'm here, but you've heard that said 208 other times, so I'll skip that routine on episode 209.
Ed Sanchez, likewise, 20. I guess I'll do my burnished credentials here. 20 plus years in automotive content creation and moderation. Current day job, automotive electronics analyst, and the Watt Car blog and podcast co-founder and contributor, and the walkcar.com/store fashion model with my new Charge Baby Charge hat.
Inspired by the Trump drill baby drill.
Yes.
Maybe these will catch on. I don't know. You can get it at the
Who knows?
whatcar.com/store, like you said. We got some other hats on there. We've got the hoodie. We've got some EVAF shirts. If you've got any other political shirts that you'd like us to put up there, shirts and hats and product, email us, hello at thewalker.com, and I can make some tacky, other
Provocative
tasteless,
apparel.
provocative apparel for people to purchase. What letter did you get?
Uh, so I got something, and I'm gonna probably take it to the Tesla service center and say, is this real or is this fake? So
Am I being scammed? The address says it's from Nigeria. Should I be concerned?
no, so it's a letter from a company that supposedly does payment processing for Tesla. And I looked up the company, and it is a real company, and they actually do this. And the letter said you have $1,000 credit on your account, basically a surplus of funds in my Tesla account. Now, the reason this kind of got my attention is like, well, the only thing I purchased in the past couple years that matches that amount was the hardware 3 computer for FSD capability, which now Elon has since come out and said, "Oh, actually, if you want FSD going forward, it's going to have to be hardware 4."
Yeah, remember all those years where I was saying that any Tesla sold could do full self-driving? Well, never
Yeah.
mind.
So, um, I think I may take it in because even one of the options that said, you know, enter this URL and, put in all your information. One of the lines said, take it to a Tesla center and, work it out with them. So I'm like, okay, I,
Wouldn't this just appear in your Tesla account? Isn't it?
you would think they're like, oh, ta-da, we just automatically refunded you, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. It
If this
seems
is
kind of
true,
strange, but
if
yeah.
this is legit, which you'll
Hmm.
report back on once you go to Tesla's service center and figure this out and hand over your social security number and whatever other
Retinal
banking
scan
information.
and
Yeah.
thumbprint. Yeah.
Does this take the cost of your hardware 3 upgrade on your Model 3 to zero? Does this
Well,
reimburse
I still
everything?
I still paid tax on, so the tax was like, I don't know, 8 or 9%. I can't remember exactly what. So it's not going to cover the tax, but it's $1,000 covers the like main retail price for the
Yes.
stated retail price
So this
for
might
hardware
cost you,
three.
like, if this is legit, this may have been like $100 upgrade then.
Uh, what do you mean by that? I'm still out what I paid for tax. They're not
Yeah,
refunding
yeah,
me the
yeah, yeah. But your
tax.
tax will have been like $100 on $1,000.
Yeah, basically
Yeah.
$100.
Yeah, that's not bad.
So
Assuming this is legit, I would just type the URL in and hand them any information they want.
until it says all your base belong to us, or
Yeah, yes. And when they ask you to buy some Bitcoin and transfer it to them to prove that you're eligible, just go ahead and do that. Just
yeah,
do that.
yeah.
It's
Anyway,
nice that
I
you can
mean,
go to a service center. That's
yeah.
it.
So I'm gonna take it in and say what's this about, and see if they know anything about it. If they're like, I don't know. But I just found it interesting that it was for that specific amount, which indicates to me that the people that had originally had hardware 2.5, like I did, voluntarily purchased hardware 3, which is now going to be obsolete. And supposedly, the original story was the hardware for computers, which are currently shipping on some of the newer models, are physically incompatible with the older models in terms of like connections, physical size, so forth. So the hypothesis is Tesla's working on a retrofit version of hardware 4 that will work in older models that still has the same functions and capability, but a different physical form factor so that it will work in older cars. So
Yeah, the problem that
who
they've got
knows?
is that Elon's been saying for years now that full self-driving will work in these older cars.
Hmm.
And a lot of people purchased them
Hmm.
under that pretense. Maybe they bought it completely because of they thought full
Hmm.
self-driving. Because he was saying
Hmm.
when he introduced all this that your car, like by the end of the year, and this was like what, 2019, 2020, whatever,
Hmm.
by the end
Hmm.
of the year, your car will be making you money.
Hmm.
And so far,
Running around at like 2 in the morning, picking up drunk people and
yeah.
while I'm
And
sleeping. Yeah.
so none of that, not a single promise that he's made regarding full self-driving has happened, as far as I'm aware. He hasn't hit a single timeline and he hasn't fulfilled anything. I
Yeah.
mean, he's got cars that do advanced driver assist. Like, I mean
Well,
that
I mean, I got a 30-day trial of FSD, and it's cool, but it's still kind of quirky, and I don't know. It's not lean back, take a nap, and it'll drive you to work and back or wherever.
one of my friends just bought a Mach-E, and he's
Hmm.
got Blue Cruise on
Blue
that.
Cruise. Yeah.
And he goes now in his commute, he actually takes the busier route that is fewer
Hmm.
miles but takes longer
Hmm.
because the car just does the driving. And he
Hmm.
just says he just sits back, he doesn't do anything. He's sold on it. He loves it. So he's got
So
a
it turns off on
3 month
off
trial.
ramp, stop at stoplights, the
Yeah, it
whole.
does. Well, he puts in the, I don't know. He said
I
on the
thought Blue Cruise
freeway.
was just
Yeah, no,
highway.
it's on the
Yeah.
freeway. Is so he just gets on the freeway, and I mean, it's what, 2 minutes to get on the freeway from his
Hmm.
house, and then 2 minutes off the freeway to get to the
Yeah.
office. So it's not like much
So
driving
I
anyway.
guess I guess the differentiating factor with FSD is that it'll operate off highway,
Yes, but
but
my
not
point being is
great.
that this a self-driving technology,
Yeah.
he says this is great. So there is so much promise. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't care anymore about getting to work faster
Hmm.
because he doesn't have to do anything. So he just sits there and like
Hmm.
talks on the
He
phone
still
or
has to look at
whatever.
the road though,
Yeah,
because I
and
think he's
he
got the eye
says he's
tracker. Yeah.
yeah, and he's very conscious about that. And he's got it pinballs a little bit, so he just rests his
Hmm.
hand on there and that stops it. So anyway, big distraction from
Yeah.
um there is, I'm not saying full self-driving isn't, cool, but I'm saying it's not what it was promised to be as far as Tesla and Elon
Well,
Musk
but I
have
mean, okay, and
claimed.
and I understand, oh, I'm just a Mustang or whatever you want to call it. The thing is, and I think maybe he kind of dug a hole for himself because technology is constantly evolving, improving, getting faster, more powerful, cheaper, etc. So, what he promised 7 or 8 years ago, and expectations, requirements, whatever. keep increasing. It's, you know,
He took the LiDAR. Was
yeah.
LiDAR actually ever on the cars?
No,
So
Teslas have never had LiDAR.
he went all in on cameras, and everybody else said,
Yeah.
you can't do it cameras alone. And he's like, no, 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 you can, you can, you can. And so he was always behind the eight ball on this because he
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
literally the only one out of
Hmm.
manufacturers who said that you could do what he wants to achieve with optical cameras only, which you cannot do in all conditions because the second the snow covers a sensor, you're done.
Hmm.
Like it
Hmm.
literally cannot be full autonomous level 5, level 4. It can't be it in an area where snow would get on a camera because you cannot see beyond the snow. It's physically impossible to get to where he's saying. But that's all that's another step down the road because right now he's got to go and from the sounds of it replace all hardware 3 with hardware 4
Hmm.
as the manufacturer. Like he's got to update all of this because he
Hmm. Hmm.
guaranteed this would
Hmm.
these were all compatible and now they're
Yeah.
not. So now he's facing a potential class action lawsuit
Hmm.
based on years of him saying
Yeah.
that this is
No,
going to like he's put
I
himself
don't
in.
dispute he's dug a hole for himself,
Yeah, he's dug a
over
huge hole for
promising and
himself,
under delivering.
and the
So
next huge hole
yeah.
is the LiDAR thing. That's the next one because he can
There,
never
there are solutions other than LiDAR for depth and distance perception.
with
I
a
mean,
camera that can't see.
well, there's radar. You're forgetting about radar. I mean, and ultrasonic sensors. Ultrasonic has since kind of been surpassed. So ultrasonic's more near, like near field distance, like perception of like if you're parking a car in front of you or
Yeah,
behind you. Um,
so you could do an FSD with no cameras, just with those sensors.
no, you'd still probably want cameras, but you could do FSD with uh cameras and radar. Now,
But you eliminate cameras as soon as it snows.
effectively, or I mean,
That's the problem
or
that he's going to hit.
the system will just say cannot
Yeah.
does, will
Keep
not
in
operate
mind,
under these conditions.
you had a slight amount of
Yeah.
California dust on your camera when you did your hardware 3 upgrade, and it stopped FSD from working. And you
Well,
cleaned the
it
camera.
was still calibrating, but I know I'm just making all these excuses. I
Yes.
cleaned off the cameras and then it started working. But anyway,
Yeah. And that's California dust stopped it from working.
not a
I've opened
Minnesota snowstorm.
I have opened so many windows since we've been
Uh,
talking that I've lost track of where we
anyway, Trump tariffs. That's the by the time you're listening to this, I'm sure
who
it'll
knows.
have changed.
This is our weekly update, and we record this a day or two before the
Yeah.
podcast releases due to scheduling and everything. So, in the last week, we have had a 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada put in place and a 10% tariff on China. Since then, 25% tariff lifted for Mexico, delayed by 30 days. I believe now the 25% tariff has been delayed as well for Canada, and 10% on China is still on set.
10% of China is in, and China has retaliated too.
Have they? What have they said?
Yes.
Tariffs.
They're putting tariffs. Yeah, they're putting tariffs on coal, LNG, and U.S. built cars, which aren't many. I
Yeah.
mean, that actually go to China. Um, so there's that. And supposedly, I read some stories anecdotally that I guess a lot of Canada has like government-owned liquor stores, which in
Yeah.
some states is fairly common. But so they've yanked. And what's interesting about this is they specifically targeted like red state liquors,
Mm-hmm.
like Kentucky bourbon and like you know, different stuff. And they put the little signs on the racks that say "Buy Canadian" instead. So
So why are we talking about this? What does this have to do
yes.
with EVs? Well, I looked up when they put these
Hmm.
tariffs in, I looked up how does this affect Tesla? Because Elon and Tesla are having their, or Elon and Trump are having their bromance right
Hmm.
now, which
Hmm.
will probably be gone in 6 months to a year,
Yeah.
based on the way those two have their history with how they deal with other people. But how does this affect Tesla? Because that's
Hmm.
ultimately where you go.
Hmm.
And they only make according to what I could find, Tesla imports its battery making machinery into
Hmm.
America
Hmm.
from Canada. So it would affect, maybe it would have affected that, maybe it wouldn't have, depending on how the
Hmm.
tariffs were
Hmm.
written. But outside of that, it would have affected all the other manufacturers, the American manufacturers, automotive manufacturers, would have hurt
Hmm.
them, but
Hmm.
would not have hurt Tesla outside of this one niche, which
Hmm.
I'm sure there was a, I'm sure it wouldn't have affected that in some way.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
also too, Tesla is also very highly vertically integrated. So meaning they produce a lot of their own stuff, whereas the rest of the automotive industry traditionally, there's this huge network of, what they call tier one suppliers that, supply all the parts to Ford, GM, Stellantis, whatever. So we're talking like dash modules, seats, headlights, stampings, whatever. Um, whereas Tesla, more so than a lot of other automakers, build all that, not everything, but a lot more of that in house than most other automakers. So maybe that's buffering them a little bit potentially from, the fallout from the tariffs. But
yeah. Jim Farley, Ford CEO, said about the
mhm.
tariffs, well, it'll affect us, but we're actually set up to do really well. But that
Mhm.
was lip service, I think, to shareholders.
Well, I think he's kind of putting on a smiley face. It's going to affect him for sure. But
Yeah. And a lot of these companies, they're all backing Trump because you have to at this point, because
mhm.
he will,
Sign an executive order
um,
against you.
yeah, no, literally will go after you. He's the kind of person that takes offense very easily, has very
Mhm.
thin skin when it comes to
Takes
anybody
things personally.
criticizing
Yeah.
him, and he will specifically target you.
Hmm.
So Ford has no choice. They have
Hmm.
to back whatever
Hmm.
Trump says, and they have to say, "Oh no, this is great," even though the stuff that we make in Canada, like we can't, and
Hmm.
it's going to affect us the other way. We won't be able to sell vehicles in Canada. And one of the provinces, Canadian provinces, went and said, okay, well, we're going to cancel our $100 million contract with Starlink,
Hmm.
and we don't want Starlink stuff anymore. To which Elon replied, oh no, on Twitter or X, whatever. Uh, Elon's been going out as part of Doge, and he's been man,
Shutting down agencies.
he's been raiding, him and his crew have been raiding a variety of agencies, shutting
Hmm.
down things that, taking data that, I mean, this stuff is going to go to court. It's being sued, and rightly so. It needs to be decided as to whether or not any of this is legit, because now we've got a private individual with federal information in
Hmm.
his personal
Hmm.
hands, with
Hmm.
no oversight. So
Hmm.
there's all of this, and I'm like, okay, between that, his salute that he did at the
Oh,
inauguration,
we're back to that again.
all of this, Elon needs to go. He
Yeah.
needs to be gone from Tesla. He is a liability at this point, and he is
Hmm.
not going to work anymore.
Hmm.
He's
Hmm.
MIA. He's not a CEO. He's an MIA at this point.
Hmm.
Why is nobody pushing back on this? Well, I found an article on,
Because the stock's still doing well.
yeah, and that's the answer. Found an
Yeah.
article on Inside EVs that said some people are beginning, some shareholders are beginning to push back, but they pushed back before and nothing ever comes of it. But in this one article, there was a thing, I'm trying to find it now, about where Elon Musk, oh no, that's not what it was. Um, I'm looking at the wrong things. I can't find, oh, here it is. All right. So, link in the show notes to
Hmm.
an electric article. And somebody posted up, they quoted somebody on maybe Twitter, I don't know what it was. And they said that uh, he had this like 4 point, Elon Musk had this four
Hmm.
point thing.
Hmm.
And uh, the one of them was like keeping organizations, keeping focused on long-term goals, managing, good at managing teams, whatever. The management and engineers co-locating with production and in person at the office interactions are net positive. So you got to be in the office to do the work.
Hmm. Except
And
him.
and if you're not willing to do number three, you need to move on. And they were like, well, based on his own top 4 list,
Hmm.
he's not doing number 3. He's not in the office. He's no longer performing his organizational and management
Hmm.
things. And so
Duties, yeah.
number 4 is in Musk's list was using this logic. He's got to be let go. Like
Hmm.
he's
Hmm.
not in Elon's own list of top 4 things
Hmm.
that you need to do. He is not accomplishing any of them, any of
Yeah.
the 3, which number 4 is if you're not accomplishing the 3, you got to go.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the only reason that I can find, oh, slipping sales,
Hmm. Hmm.
a Cybertruck that's a failure,
Hmm.
uh, that they're now backpedaling on, saying, "Oh, well, this was never supposed to be a high volume vehicle. This was a test
Hmm.
mule to for
Yet they were
future
bragging about
technologies."
2,000,
Two
like
million
two
pre-orders that
million. Yeah.
so and they were ramping up saying we were going to be able to produce 250,000 of these, I believe the number was,
Hmm.
every year, and they blew through the
Yeah.
50,000 in the first 6
So
months.
latest I heard is they're shifting resources toward the Juniper Model Y, which
Uh-huh,
which
they're
makes
like,
sense because that's their bread and butter.
yeah.
But
So
yeah.
failure, 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 failure. Very controversial figure doing
Hmm.
salutes that the neo-Nazi groups
Are
are
also
saying, "Oh, this is
controversial.
wonderful." Um, he needs to go.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Uh, well, I mean, I think your correlation to the stock price is right, and I've heard various theories on this is almost like a whole other episode, but it kind of gets down to whether you see Tesla as a car company or a technology company. That's a broader conversation that we can maybe get into it
I
at
mean,
another
if you
time.
want to get into that, he's made other statements where he said he'll go if he doesn't get his percentage of Tesla stock, whatever, he'll
Oh
go
yeah.
and do his competing organization. He's even taken chips from Tesla and put them to his AI company. Instead, he
Hmm.
shifted from a publicly traded company. He shifted a shipment of were they graphics cards or were they computer chips, whatever they were coming in,
Oh,
they
the
were hard to
NVIDIA
get,
GPUs or
and he
whatever. Yeah.
shifted them to his own personal AI company
Hmm.
because he said, well, Tesla wasn't ready for them yet. They had nowhere to store them, but he found a place to store them with his personal thing. He's already
Yeah.
using shifting Tesla's publicly traded company assets to his own.
Oh,
He has already
the
taken Tesla engineers and used them at Twitter, which he owns.
the
Uh,
oligarchy in action, huh?
it
Anyway. No,
he
I
is
don't I
missing in
don't I
action
don't
at this point, and he's a
TLDR, I don't
liability.
completely disagree. I think there are Tesla as a company has a deep enough bench of talent that I think um, someone could easily step in. And
Herbert Deese, they had a bromance. Bring him in.
there's that. There's also Tom Zhu, who was head of their China operations, who I now think basically oversees their global manufacturing operations. Um, and in a lot of ways, Shanghai has kind of become the model for the rest of their plants globally in terms of efficiency, quality, everything else. So,
JB
um,
Strobel, bring in Redwood Materials. Isn't that what it's called?
yeah,
Redwood.
Redwood Materials,
Yeah.
yeah,
Bring that in as
potentially,
a
yeah.
as an asset to
Hmm.
Tesla. So now you are the complete from manufacturing to
Hmm.
recycling. You are a
Hmm.
full
No,
um,
I think JB would
holistic
be
solution.
I think JB would be fantastic in a number of ways. The question is, would he want it? Um, but I mean, in terms of engineering talent, in terms of likability, is what I know about him so far. Um, just kind of broad vision, like you said, taking into account his involvement with Redwood Materials, kind of the entire ecosystem of EVs from cradle to grave, and the kind of the I
It
guess a
would
virtuous
take
cycle. Yeah.
it would fulfill Elon's master plan or help fulfill it, which
Hmm.
he's now deleted.
Hmm.
But his whole master plan of
Yeah.
making the world a
Yeah.
better place and greener and yada yada,
Yeah.
it would bring all
And
of
I
that to
think
fruition.
potentially would boost Tesla sales because I think that the public perception of JB is certainly for the last couple of years has been a lot more positive than Elon. So I would not have a problem with this.
I think there is
Like I said in my
there
my
is some
video, we
major
linked
drama
to,
coming.
yeah. Like I said, based on my last the personal video we linked to, I think last week, I, and again, if you could say I'm splitting hairs with this, but I separate Musk from Tesla as the company. And I just, maybe I'm just playing mental gymnastics in my head, but you
I
know,
think I think you can't in this case.
Yeah.
If he were Mary Barra
Hmm.
and she did this, she did
Oh,
everything that he's
she would
done.
have been gone in like 6 months.
Yeah, she would have been gone with the first time she called somebody a pedophile. She
Hmm.
would have been gone.
Hmm.
And that now is, I believe, 6 years ago that Elon Musk did that and
Hmm.
got sued over it and only won that lawsuit on a technicality.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's the CEO of a publicly traded
Anyway,
company did that to somebody with no justification. I don't see how he's here. I don't see how Tesla's a legitimately run company. I think they need to throw him out as CEO and strip him of his shares. I think at this point he's lost everything.
well,
And
yeah. Anyway,
there's
whole other
if they
episode.
don't, I think there's a liability let there with Tesla that they're
Potentially,
opening
but
themselves up for. It's craziness to me.
anyway.
So that's where I'm going to end
So
that because I said last week that I try not to talk too bad about him. But in this last couple
I have to
weeks,
make a comment on this next one.
which is this one? Where are we going?
So Trump campaigned heavily on the drill baby drill
Mm-hmm.
motto. So I guess he said this during their Q4 earnings call. Must he reiterated? He says EVs are inevitable, and the quote is, "At this point, I think sustainable transport is inevitable. I'm highly confident that all transport will be autonomous electric, including aircraft, and simply it can't be stopped." So
So why are his sales down?
because a lot of people don't like him as a person,
Yeah,
I guess.
because he's a liability for the company. Because other companies selling EVs, some of their sales are up, and Tesla's the one that's struggling right now. And that there's like in Denmark, isn't it 30% in
Oh,
a recent
Netherlands,
poll? Netherlands, that 30% want to sell their Teslas.
because of
Like
him. Yeah,
because of him. Like he's a liability at
yeah.
this point. And he's getting
Anyway,
more of a liability every single day. Ford,
Ford.
you called this one, did you?
Yes, I did.
So they're going EREVs, extended range EVs.
Yeah, this is from Bloomberg. So supposedly by 2027, they're going to have multiple EREVs in multiple segments. So,
Now I've discovered this is a topic for another day, literally might be
mhm,
next week's episode about zero emissions vehicles
mhm,
and California's mandate of 35% sales, I think it is, by the year
mhm,
2026, and problems with that. And we'll get into that. But, and I'll cover this too, EREVs, anything plug-in,
mhm.
counts as a zero emissions vehicle per the state of California.
Okay.
So this actually doesn't hurt Ford at all in reaching zero emission vehicle requirements
Like
in states like
credits or whatever.
California.
Yeah.
Yeah. They could go to EREVs
Hmm.
and sell them to the moon
Hmm.
and they get a pass.
Credit for making EVs. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is quite amazing. I knew that hydrogen played into that. I did not
Hmm.
realize, or if I did, I forgot that anything with a plug is
Yeah.
considered a zero emissions
So
vehicle.
I feel this is a win all around if they can do it profitably, because I think the big thing that has made people hesitant to get, like, say, an F-150 Lightning is the limits on its capabilities based on its range, based on its powertrain. Um, and I know, like, all the excitement surrounding the Ram Charger, they could kind of have that too, and that its capabilities are basically, I know that you even made fun of kind of like the marketing hype around the Ram Charger, unlimited range.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yep.
But I mean, basically, it's not constrained by a specific technology. Like it's not like, oh, once your battery runs out, you're SOL. It's like, no, you got a range extender, you got a battery, you got exportable power. I've done a post on that about why I think that's going to be a game changer. If it'll produce, you know, like have 7,200 watt output or more. I mean, that could come in real handy. Um, or like car to car charging. I mean, there's a whole bunch of possibilities with this. So I think
So
this could
Ford
really be, yeah,
Ford's going to have these by 2027.
that's what they're saying. Yeah.
So they've been working on this for a while.
Oh, sure, of course. But I think, yeah, I mean, probably, I think for sure since probably like 2022 or 23. But I think maybe they've accelerated their R&D and their investments in it, um, for whatever reasons. I think they were probably watching very closely the public reaction to the Ram Charger, which um, I don't know if it, I don't think anyone outside of Stellantis has driven it yet, but at least the excitement and interest in the concept, I think, undoubtedly has been pretty strong. So,
Yeah, I think I can't, at least when it comes to trucks, EREV's definitely the way to go.
hmm hmm
When it comes to individual cars,
yeah, passenger cars, I think it makes the most sense in the context of trucks.
yeah.
Yeah, like passenger cars, I think we're already past the point where cost, efficiency, so forth. I think they're kind of already there. But trucks is the one use case where think E-revs make a lot of sense.
Hmm.
And I think that's even been validated by, when the Scout, when they pulled the sheets off those. So far, from what I've heard, the majority of pre-orders or reservations have been for the E-rev model. Um,
Yeah.
I
And
think
they're going
even
to
more
help
so
pave
than
the
they would have.
way.
Yeah.
They're going to help pave the way for full electric vehicles because they are, you are continuing with battery development beyond all
hmm
of that. And you get, you're producing more, you're learning more. Individual people will get them and go, oh, well, I don't actually, drive, if I'm just buying a car for my next one, I just buy
hmm
an EV
hmm
because I don't need to tow with that. And everything that we
Well,
do on
yeah.
this is
Well, that's the
electric. So
thing
it,
is
it
is it
really
it
helps
does
everything.
it influences consumer behavior because people buy them with kind of a training wheel mentality of like, oh, I want this just in case. But like you said, in real world driving, they're driving so many of their miles on electric. They're like, maybe I don't really need the gas engine.
Yeah, my gas engine only clicks in when I'm towing.
Yeah,
My next car, when your car dies, you replace your BMW and you just buy
yeah.
yourself
So
a Ionic 6 or something.
yeah,
It really is, it stretches out the amount of time that the adoption
hmm
would take place,
hmm yeah,
but it still gets you where you're going.
hmm
And it's something my sister said when she was on the podcast years ago at this
hmm
point is the first step doesn't need to be the big step.
hmm
Any step is sometimes the best step.
hmm
And so if you're stepping in the right direction, that's all that really
yeah.
matters. So I, I think that's pretty good. I think it's a smart move, especially when you're talking about big vehicles and Fords. Honda, let's see. They're doing $1 billion in EV manufacturing in Ohio for EVs.
hmm
Did I say EV twice in
Supposedly
that
for
sentence?
the concept zero or whatever they're calling it.
The turbo vac.
Yeah, yeah, the handy vac or all that.
So what does that
And
mean?
this is
EV
in this.
manufacturing hub. What does that mean? It just means a manufacturing plant, like for to actually build
I
the
mean, well, I mean,
metal.
Honda's had a presence in Ohio going back like 40 years. I mean,
Hmm.
um, so this is nothing new, but I guess, and I'm sure, the incoming administration and their stated policies probably influence this somewhat. But I mean, Honda's always had a pretty robust manufacturing presence in the US, so this isn't a great surprise. This is in addition to some battery investments they made. I want to say with LG, um, like they announced it like maybe a year ago. I think that was like 3.5 billion or something like that. But anyway, so they're committing to a pretty robust presence in Ohio for EVs. I guess they agree with Elon, much to their chagrin, about the longer term trajectory for EVs, even though, in the short term, you know, the demand picture is kind of mixed, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be
The ramp
interesting.
isn't as steep as a lot of people expected, but it's coming. And I think there are a lot of factors that will kind of lead to the ramp going up. Um, but we're
You've
not
got
all the factors haven't converged yet.
We are in a bizarre place right now because we've got a president who seemingly doesn't like EVs.
hmm
He's all about drilling. His best bud is the world's biggest EV maker or second largest
hmm
EV maker, depending on what month it is.
hmm
And you've got all
And
these
he's saying they're
companies,
inevitable.
and he's saying
So,
they're inevitable. And then you've got all these car companies that have been taking all this billions of dollars of investment into EVs,
mhm,
and they can see the reality of
mhm,
Trump's a lame duck president. Like,
mhm.
there is no year 5 of his presidency
Yeah.
unless we have some drastic change in the Constitution.
Well, the way
Trump's
things are
out.
going, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But assuming democracy prevails,
Yeah.
we have a new president in 4 years, literally 4 years from today. Trump is
Hmm.
not in office.
Hmm.
And that could mean we have a Democrat in office who is going to put all of this stuff back in place. It could
Hmm.
mean that we have a Republican who
Hmm.
puts some of this stuff back into place. Like,
Hmm.
you just don't know. So the
Yeah.
manufacturers that have been putting billions in over the last handful of years,
Hmm.
the ship sailed. I think you're
Yeah.
right. I think they're
Yeah.
going. It's
Hmm.
whether or not they see the value in it. Honda might not necessarily see the value, but they've already committed. You
Hmm.
know, there's I
Hmm.
forgot what the name of it is. We have it at
Sunk cost fallacy.
no, no, it's you make a decision and you go. And I can't remember the company that I work for. We do this of you all get together, you make a decision, and if you all don't agree with that decision, that's fine. But
Hmm.
you talk out your decision, you figure out the best path forward, and then you commit to that decision, and then everybody is on board, and
Yeah.
you go. Even if you're against it,
Hmm.
I mean, you could always quit if you wanted
Yeah.
to, but even if you're against it, you go in, you have had your opportunity to weigh the pros and the cons, and then you go. And I feel like Honda and Toyota and Mazda, I think they've all gone down that road and they've all committed. And that's what they've been doing for the last few
Mm.
years. They've got billions of dollars in. They've now, they might not be going fast, but I think they're
Yeah.
going down that road.
Yeah.
I don't think they're pulling back. Honda's not doing an announcement saying that they're building a $1 billion diesel plant in Ohio.
Yeah. Yeah. To your point. So, switching to
However,
another.
however, Volkswagen
Yeah.
is canceling the ID.7 for US and Canada.
Yeah.
What's up with
So,
that?
yeah, I guess they figured there's not much market for kind of a big, chunky sedan.
Who would have thought
So,
sedans don't sell in America? Breaking
yeah.
news.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a trend from 20 years ago, isn't it? That this started to change.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I guess, and this may also have something to do with the current administration's has stated desire, like you're next on the list, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, potentially, you know, who knows how much, 10, 15, 25% on EU imports. Currently, the ID.7 is made in Germany, so that would be affected by that. And I think they're figuring whatever incremental sales we'd get from it is just not worth it.
But the flip side of this is Volkswagen Group owns a ton of other companies. I mean, I don't know how many it is. It's got to be 10 at least.
Globally, probably, yeah, probably about 8 or 10. I don't know.
And Audi, Porsche, or
Hmm.
Porsche, however you want to say it. While Volkswagen's saying, oh, we're not going to bring the ID.7 to America, Audi and Porsche are saying, we're going to start building our cars here for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Do you think that they meet in the same buildings or have any
So, well, I
consistency
mean,
within people?
what's interesting is Volkswagen Group, they have, so Porsche has their US headquarters in Atlanta. Audi has theirs, I think, in the Virginia metropolitan area. Volkswagen also, I don't know if the VW and Audi headquarters are co-located or if they have physically separate offices. I know Porsche is kind of on their own. Um, but maybe I'm sure because we're around the same age. Do you remember when like Porsche Audi was a thing? Like all the dealers were Porsche Audi.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now they're for the most part standalone. You have
I
Porsche
haven't
dealer, you
I
have
haven't
Audi
bought one
dealer.
of either, so I don't know currently.
Yeah, but back in the day, Porsche and Audi
Yeah.
were almost kind of synonymous. They
Yep.
were usually, paired together. But uh yeah, s- the US for a lot of brands is maybe second to China in terms of their biggest markets, or at least their biggest, export markets. So Audi's like, look, if we're going to start having to pay 25% more, because Audi does have a plant in Mexico that builds a Q5, and the majority of those come to the US. So they're like, well, do we keep doing that and just deal with the tariffs, or,
I
you know,
think talking about long-term effects of things, I think one of
mhm,
the side effects of this, for good or bad, depending on which what you want to think,
mhm,
is there's going to be there's going to be manufacturing that shifts to America from the likes of
mhm,
Mexico and Canada just
mhm,
because of the uncertainty that's happening.
mhm,
And if you're going to build a plant or invest in a plant, and the USA is your market that you're predominantly building for, it
mhm,
may cost you more and you may have to increase the price of your cars.
mhm,
But if you don't have to deal with all of this and the
mhm,
drama of it,
mhm,
you might just do it.
mhm,
And then you set it in motion now,
mhm,
and then in 5 years time, 10 years time, you alleviate that headache.
mhm.
And it's kind of the,
Yeah.
is it the Japanese or is it the Chinese mentality? I can't remember. There's a thing called like the seventh generation. You don't, oh no, it's Native Americans. What am I
Mm.
talking about? Seventh generation. It's like you don't do stuff for now, you do stuff for the seventh generation from
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about companies like these that have been around for a century,
Mhm,
you've got to kind of have that mentality a little bit of, well,
mhm,
I'm not going to be here at this
mhm,
company, I'll be retired in 15 years.
mhm.
But man, once we get to 50 years from now, we just those we can set in motion now success
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
will see in 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, whatever it
Yeah.
is. So I wonder if now is kind of in this horrible time of uncertainty that we've had
Mhm,
for, depending on which side you're on, the last 8 years, the last 6 years, 4 years, who knows?
mhm,
Uh, that as a company, uncertainty is horrible. Like as an
mhm,
individual, you're like, oh, this is bad, this is bad. But as a company, you can't build a strategy
mhm,
if you don't know what's going on.
mhm.
You just need some
Yeah,
consistency.
this isn't that big of a leap for Audi, I don't think, because BMW has been in South Carolina for what, like
Hmm.
20 some years
Yep.
now. And actually, Spartanburg is their largest plant in the world, actually. And it exports globally. How much longer, who knows? But I think this is a bigger kind of perceptual step for Porsche because they've always prided themselves on made in Germany. And with the one exception of the first generation Boxster, that some of them were contract manufactured in Finland, all Porsches other than the Boxster have been made in Germany. So I mean, it makes me wonder, like, if you look at the Porsche like logo and crest, it says Stuttgart. So are the ones made in, Tennessee or Alabama still going to say Stuttgart on them? I mean, who knows? But anyway,
That does make you wonder if the resale on US ones, like if they bring in some from Germany and they make some here,
mhm,
would the resale be higher on something like a
a German
German
built
Porsche
one.
versus an American built Porsche? Like I don't know if they would mix the, if
I mean,
like,
you'd still be able to tell from the VIN numbers.
yeah, but I'm saying like
So
I don't know
yeah,
if they would bring in some from Germany and some from America and have
my
that cross sale of a similar
yeah,
model,
my
but
my
like,
my guess is like the higher end, more kind of specialized, like the GT3s
yep,
or the
that's exactly
Turbo
what I
S or
was thinking.
whatever are going to come from Germany. The more kind of commoditized, run of the mill, like most of the Macans, or you know
Yeah, I
even
guess
maybe
the
like,
non-enthusiast
yeah, just
vehicles per
kind of
se.
their bread
Yeah.
and butter. The Macans, Cayennes, build those in the States. The more kind of, I guess, exotic models, still import from Germany. That in the segments that are less price sensitive. I mean, a difference of like 15, 20 grand on like, a top of the line, Panamera or Taycan or whatever. People that want those are going to buy them. Doesn't matter. They don't care. But Macan is arguably maybe a little more price sensitive. Um, so that I could see them building here, but I think it'll be kind of like, also, I mean, Lexus comes to mind. A lot of their kind of higher volume models they build in the US. The more kind of, I guess, specialized or lower volume models they still bring in from Japan. That's what I think is probably going to happen with this. So
Speaking of America,
America, nothing more
NASCAR.
American than NASCAR.
Yes. So NASCAR earlier this year, middle of last year, NASCAR unveiled its electric NASCAR concept, whatever it was.
Hmm.
And I didn't completely I didn't completely go back through everything that they'd said,
Hmm.
but I believe they were not talking about running the Daytona 500 in these. That it was more of
Hmm.
like a sprint race format. They don't even know
Hmm.
really. They're
Hmm.
just you're just trying out the waters. Well,
Putting it out there, yeah.
Ford has released its tri-motor Mach E EV NASCAR,
Hmm.
which they're silhouette cars, much like
Hmm.
existing NASCAR Cup cars.
Yeah.
So it looks very similar to the concept from June or July of last year. But I have not looked at this article before, so I am just reading
Yeah.
it now on Electrek. There'll be a link in the show notes. 78 kilowatt hour battery, three electric motors, carbon fiber tub, 1400 horsepower. Oh no, they're saying that the super van, which they've run Pikes Peak with
Hmm.
multiple years, once as a van and once as a pickup, I believe,
Hmm.
was 1400. So they're saying it could be about the same or whatever. There's no additional details to this, are there?
No, no, other than the photo. But I personally think it kind of looks cool.
The the
Looks are subjective,
irony,
but
the irony of this is because they can't do like 500-mile races with these. It's just
no.
it's not going to be exciting. It doesn't work. I've said before, if you're doing motorsports, I think certain motorsports needs to be internal combustion based,
Hmm.
and others can be EV based. And the
Hmm.
irony of this is NASCAR is not known for road course stuff, short
Hmm.
sprint race road course
Hmm.
stuff.
Usually the big ovals, yeah.
They do big ovals, they do long distance, things like that, or smaller ovals, whatever. But
Hmm. Hmm.
and then on top of that, EVs are traditionally heavier, which are worse at things like road courses. But I think road
Hmm.
courses are where this is at. I
Hmm.
think this is exactly where they could shine.
Hmm.
Is you do this. Maybe the 78 kilowatt hour batteries might be the minimum that you could do. But I bet even on a road course, in a series
Hmm.
with road courses, if they could get battery swaps down to
Hmm.
30 seconds, I could
Hmm.
see this like totally taking off. The idea that Formula E did, where they swapped cars
Hmm.
during the first season, I think it was only the first season or two they did that, and then
Hmm.
eventually they figured out how to charge these things faster, I guess. That kind of no,
Yeah.
it wasn't very
Yeah,
exciting changing cars, but man, if they could do a battery swap in like 30 seconds on this thing,
I
uh,
that's really in terms of like the longer distance, like kind of endurance races. That's the only model I see with the current technology is being feasible is battery swap. But yeah, who knows? I really want to talk about this. I know we're kind of hitting
we are
up against the
way
hour.
over. What do you want to talk about?
The This is a Stellantis patent for an EV motor driven winch.
I don't, what?
So so basically the idea is instead of like having a dedicated motor for the winch itself, it would use the EV motor as the winch motor. I guess with like kind of a clutch pack or something. I don't know.
How
But
interesting. So it would disengage from the wheels and just engage on
well,
the winch.
not I don't know if it would necessarily totally disengage from the wheels, but it would use the EV traction motor as the means of powering the winch.
Yeah, but it
So
wouldn't spin the
basically,
tires. It would. So would you control the winch with the gas pedal?
um, I don't
I
know.
mean, you
So
do a
basically,
remote. That's yeah.
a lot of people say, "Oh, this is just basically an electric PTO." You know what a PTO is? Power takeoff. Are you familiar with the
I don't know if I
concept of a
am.
power takeoff? It's basically like it's a output from the transmission that can drive other accessories.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
So this is like on commercial vehicles, like a hydraulic pump for a dump bed or whatever
Yeah.
like that. It's basically the same idea, but with an electric motor. So this article goes into kind of nerdy detail about the how and why and the function of it. But bottom line is they're trying to save weight, they're trying to save cost. Um, you know, so that's kind of cool.
That's potentially
Yeah.
more exciting than an electric NASCAR. Oddly enough.
Well, at least for off-road guys for sure.
Yeah,
So
no, it's the kind of thing that you can't. Well, maybe you could do it with an electric with a gas engine. I don't know, but it's things that you can get into that you weren't necessarily getting into before, and different ways to look at certain problems.
well, I mean, electrification enables a lot of things that previously were either impractical, too expensive, too
Hmm.
complicated. But because of the technology enables it, it's like, oh, well, we can do this now.
Yeah. I watch a
That's
lot
really
of
cool.
off-road recovery stuff on YouTube, and like they'll do a small job and they use their winches and they just winch them up, whatever. But if they're doing a big job, extended jobs, they have to turn the engine on their recovery rig,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
there's a lot of power issues that you get into with
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
electric winches. This would kind of solve a lot of the
Hmm.
problem.
Hmm.
So that'd be interesting. Anyway, I got to run. So everything we talked about, the show notes will be embedded into the podcast. They're also on thewalkcar.com. You can find them there. And sometimes it's easier to go to the actual website and click the link and it'll open up a window and you can go off from there. We're on the social medias. I mentioned before that we were kind of shutting down our X account, which is under effect. We are now on Blue Sky instead. So we're kind of in a variety of places. But and maybe you couldn't tell from the beginning of this episode, but um, I, I don't like a certain person right now. So,
Never would have
uh,
guessed.
yeah, but if you like us, go to thewalkcar.com/store and purchase some of the stuff that helps support the blog, the podcast, and anything else that we try to do, any equipment, anything that really helps us out. Email us hello@thewalkcar.com. I largely don't check that email address, so good for you if you do that. Instead, leave comments on our YouTube stuff. YouTube slash at the walk I think is where we are. And advertising Elon Musk. Come on and advertise thewalkcar.com/advertise. Change my mind. Prove me wrong. Isn't that the meme from like 7 years ago?
Anyway,
Like I said, next week we got something in the works, and hopefully I won't go off on my personal feelings.
all right. We'll
Bye.
see you then.